that I use, well, you can see it later. And yeah, you can ask questions in the Padlet. Thank you.
Please go ahead and wait a minute. I'll let people put their questions.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, now's the time to post them on the Padlet. No? Okay, Helen, why don't you go ahead? People are not
Hello everybody, good afternoon. The title of my presentation is Digital Apps Developers. Should they move to globalization and localization? And don't Google the word because it's a neologism I just coined a few months ago. In my presentation, I will be critiquing with a deliberately critical lens the dominance of monolingual perspectives in developing digital tools and apps for users, with the perspectives of highlighting the need for web developers and designers to incorporate in the design the ideas of local context and translinguaging practices, and considering more input from various language varieties to be included as data sets for native speakers in the light of translanguaging as a process of meaning and sense making. But before that, I will just go very briefly on the terms that I will be using here. It's just multitasking, sorry. All right. So globalization is a word that fuses the concepts of globalization and localization. It's when a product that is created and tailored to fit the individual users with their customs, with their culture, with their languages, to fit into the global language. On the other hand, localization, the word I just coined, is the adoption of the local context, the cultures, the languages, the users' needs to be adopted into the global context. So this results in a hybrid global vision, but it's the local context is on the top. I'm sorry. Thank you. Teachers. Okay. And you might have known that. So you might have known that translanguaging is the multilingual practices of using one's complete linguistic repertoire to as a resource for producing meaning to maximize communication. So I'm tackling translanguaging here as a communication, not about language, because what makes a language is what people chooses to use it for. And these people today, they are the total of 5 billion people who are using the internet today. They are using the metaverse to communicate, to engage with one another, where the main principle is decentralization. They are using the metaverse and Web3, where the key principles and key terms are ownership and identity. All right, with all this said, let's look at some of the tools that I've been investigating throughout the previous months. Today we have almost 7,000 languages around the world, but unfortunately Google searches only very limited language, and it's very evident that the representation of most of these languages translation, Google, which is on the top as usual, comes with 109 languages only translated. In their article, Digitally Disadvantaged Languages, Zouk Hussein and Molly state that digital corpora are unavailable or do not exist to develop machine translation and search functions due to lack of basic digital support like phones and keyboards that allow speakers to develop online content, and they believe that this is a vicious cycle. If we look into Nate Leaf's comics, where languages are very limited for users to create comics, and also if we look at Duolingo, which according to the World Economic Forum is used by more than 150 million people around the world, but still, it supports only 23 languages. Looking into the gaps in language access in terms of contributing to language extinction, inequities in the digital sphere seem to be a fact. According to UNESCO's latest report, from 50 to 90% of language diversity is stated to be lost this century. And Web3 text data revealed that the number of languages, notably French, Spanish, and Chinese with all its formats, are all underrepresented in the web content compared to the people who speak these languages. Taking only one example of from the gaming industry, when Wordle started, the non-native English speakers found the word very frustrating, and they were competing, challenged and competing with millions of people who were playing the original version of Wordle, but not with many teething problems. Web developers and designers started creating different versions of Wordle in their own languages. So you can see here Urdu, Arabic, Portuguese, Spanish, French, and Welsh, Cymric, and even in indigenous languages. So that's I think, a positive point here. The tool itself sometimes dispenses information through its design. It instructs us users how to use it. For example, why is it a tweet of 280 characters? Why do we need to swipe left and right if we want to use any of the apps on our phones? Sometimes we find that the design itself is a little bit arbitrary or derivative of a similar one. Either way, we don't have any say in how the tool works. Tools such as word processors, autocorrect, spell checkers, and predictive typing can speed up typing, but also degrade a language's orthography and patterns of respectful address if developed without appropriate care. The increasing use of artificial intelligence extends correctness to automated captioning as well as writing and speaking. So grammar checkers are set to specific varieties that developers call standard and flag anything that deviates. This is an example of how Grammarly tried its best to suggest to me words when I was writing a POT report to to our colleague. And I think all tools that do this must be questions. Why? I'm just using, I really need this word. Why are you suggesting another word for me? So this is also part of the need of more input for various language varieties. Right, Chrome, version 99 came up with recognition application, which recognizes human handwriting online at the same time, using simultaneous languages, different languages simultaneously. I think this is also a positive point. But guess what? The same inequity remains. And this is also applicable to current voice recognition tools and non-native written varieties to well improve the current autocorrection tools. So, what to do? What am I calling for here? When developing tools in a language, web developers must consider the roles played by translanguaging, identities, users' experiences and culture in the process of language representation and text choices. Web developers must be oriented to open a translanguage space for localization. I'm just quoting here Boglarka, Rosen, and Wading. Web developers, I think they really need to know that they have to use not all, but many of the underrepresented languages to maximize fostering positive, productive, and efficient communication. So users will be able to engage in productive language development and identity formation. We can also see here the need for localization in the gaps in language access. In the call of Cornet's words, where he stated that more efforts are needed to bring data and metadata about languages online and make both lexical resources and primary text web accessible. And these are some questions I am left with. Honestly, I think this is for further research, and I'm leaving you with these questions. What is the role of developers in shaping localized digital tools or games? Do we need web designers to tell us or to inquire deeply into how the available tools uses? And the other questions, but I find the last question is very important. What is our role as language teachers in enhancing digitalized translanguage? I think this is a question that we need to answer, because we really are advocates of translanguaging in supporting our bilingual students to make space for their bilingualism, to develop their linguistic repertoire. They will kill me, I'm taking too much time, and their bilingual identities. And we do this all the time in assessment, in curriculum. And we also need to highlight that users need to use their linguistic language repertoire to reconceptualize language as multilingual, multimodal, multisensory system of meaning-producing resources. Thank you so much. These are the list of the references, and please take a moment to post any questions.